Seahawks 23-20 over the Pats in OT, going into Foxborough, grinding out a win, 2-0, first in the division. A lot of things we loved in this game. Obviously, there's some things we're going to touch on as well that we were making notes on throughout the game that still got to get cleaned up. It's a process still. I mean, everyone understands that. But at the end of the day, Seahawks 2-0, first in the division. You got to be happy with that. On the other side, we're going to get into it with all your comments, live Q&A on the Hawk Zone Rundown.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
For this run. Get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got a lead. Leo Wilson to catch. Smith and Jimbo. The Seahawks are going to host the NFC Championship.
Every year, the NFL does. Is it going to be
another
9-8?
Players who've got to finish something.
They have to fix the offensive
Part of his
line.
success and part of
Ambition of being the LOB one again.
Here, that's trading DK Metcalf.
Play him aggressive.
This is the Hawk Zone Rundown with Ryan and Bryce.
Guys, you're listening to the Hawk Zone Rundown. We're coming live at you after the Seahawks 23-20 win. This is our reaction after the game. And like I said, we want your guys to comment on the chat, and we're gonna get to as many as we can tonight. Talk about this win, Seahawks 2-0. Before we get into all of that, though, guys, if you're watching right now, or if you've been watching the channel and you haven't subbed yet, go down, hit the subscribe button, like button, and notification button so you know when future episodes are coming up, just like this one tonight. So when we're going live, you get notified, and you can get right in here and join us. So Bryce, 2-0 Seahawks. I know there's it's a work in progress, some things, but we talked about it. We looked at the schedule, said, okay, Denver, New England, this could be kind of a nice starting point to just get everybody's feet wet. And at the end of the day, man, that New England team, they got some players over there on that other side. It's not like they're just some cakewalk. Obviously beating Cincinnati last week. So we're coming in. We mentioned on our pregame, we're flying across country. How does Mike McDonald get this team ready to go? We're going to get into all of it. But at the end of the day, 2-0, man. Hey, first in the division, man. We got to feel good about that.
No, yeah, man, you're totally right. This is kind of what we had hoped for. They were going to start out this strong. They were going to get 2 wins right away. Then we knew that, hey, okay, you get those 2 out of the way. Now we got this gauntlet coming with a little bit of a gauntlet, I should say, with the Dolphins, the Lions, and so on. So, it was good. Obviously, there's still things they need to clean up. Watching the game, I've watched it a couple times now, and we'll probably get into it through this conversation tonight. But the O-lines, there's still some major issues that need to be addressed there. The fact that we couldn't, and I get, K9's a really good running back and he's super explosive in the full package, but our running game should not drop that far off when, again, we invested another second-round pick the following year in Zach Charbonnet. 2 second-round talent backs, and Charbonnet's no slouch, but it was we could not run the ball to save our life today, and it was pretty much put on, Geno's shoulders to, hey, this is one of those moments where, you want to prove that you're, we've been saying, a top 12, top 10 quarterback in this league. Sometimes you got to win games like this. And to be honest, I think Geno's now firmly put himself in that conversation in this era of the NFL that he is a top 12 quarterback.
Yeah, you know what? That's the thing. We talk about offseason, how this guy just always has to seem like he's always has to prove himself. And, a lot of that we talked about that, the history of obviously he's been in the league for so many years. Disaster, with the Jets, and but a lot of that falls in the organization too, and then just sort of fell into that backup role, backup for us until Russ left, and then finally gets his shot, and it's just one of those, I always have to prove it. But like you said, I think you're going to see less and less of that if he sort of puts these types of games together, man. Just talking quickly, yeah, we're stoked about how he balled today, and talk about the stat line, 33 for 44. There was a lot of drops today. I mean, that stat line, and throwing for 327,
Yep.
Think about that stat line. I mean, we can talk about a few. There was a back-to-back there with DK and then Noah Fant, man. That ball slipped through. And hey, I know it was not the easiest catch, but it was there for JSN, and we'll get into JSN because he balled out. But that's what was it, third and 15, and just
Yeah.
put it on him. And it was one of those things that, young guy just doesn't make the play. So, you take away the 5 drops, that's a lot of drops. I mean, he could have easily been 37 I mean, it could have been, talk about percentage, so he just played great. And then just to lead the team down, to come down and tie the game and get them into OT, and then put a drive like that together in overtime to set up Myers, man. It just sort of like, and like I said, you're talking about a 10 a.m. game on the road, a feisty New England Patriots team that has some ball players on defense. So you got to be super excited about how we're starting this season with, I mean, let's be honest, we got to slow it down for everybody. This is a brand new head coach. As much as you might think this guy's a mastermind, and we love Ryan Grubb, and these guys are still learning as they're going here. This is new for them. So for Mike, you feel good for him. 2-0. You're going back home now. It's just it's perfect to start the season in all facets of it, because it's all about wins and losses. But talking about the offense, let's stick on the offense for a second here, man. No Kenneth Walker, and like you just mentioned a second ago, that it's if you lose Ken, it shouldn't be that big of a drop off the old slab. There was people hard on Zach, talking about maybe some of his footwork just did look slow. We didn't really see the full package from Zach last season. We talking about last year how guys were mismanaged, misused. We didn't think Zach was, used properly, the type of runner he is. He gets that when he's the number one guy. Do you think it might be just a little different situation? And I want to ask you this too, man. Were you surprised no Kenny Mack?
I was a little. It was kind of interesting to me that we didn't see any Kenny Mack really at all. I know George Filani played a little bit, especially they split him out more as a receiver. Here's the thing with Charbonnet, and I think people and this is kind of just a thing from my own point of view as an offensive coordinator. You have different run schemes, right? You've got gap, you've got power, you got wide zone, you've got a whole bunch of different things. And Zach Charbonnet is not going to be your guy that's going to be able to make a lot out of nothing. Like the blocks have to be there for him. And so he's a downhill running type of back. So like when he did score his touchdown today and it was a straight ahead run, that's where you see Zach Charbonnet's ability. And like he did, maul out some yards for like 4-yard gains, 3-yard gains. But the thing that I look at with Zach Charbonnet is he is the complement to Kenneth Walker. Like he isn't really going to be a back, I don't think, that you can truly turn around and be like, okay, you're our number one back and you're the guy. He's going to need someone else to be his explosive partner. And for some reason today, I'm not sure what the game plan was, we didn't see a lot of Kenny Mack. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on with Kenneth's injury. I think also for, like you said and alluded to earlier, Ryan Grubb's still learning this NFL game in a way, and how defenses are going to attack you and how defenses are going to take things away from you. And now he's gone into kind of, they really, if you look at it, like they haven't really even had the full offense together, because we still don't have Abe Lucas. We didn't have George Fant. We're on our third offensive tackle on the right side. It's only really Connor Williams' second game of playing. Like he missed the entirety of the preseason. Now we're down our starting running back to our backup running back. So, and even Farrell Brown, like as much as people probably have like looked at him and like, oh, this Farrell Brown's a pretty significant role in Ryan Grubb's offense with a true blocking tight end, because yes, AJ Barner is eventually going to take that role, I think, in a year, but he's not there yet to where he knows exactly how to fit certain runs that they have built into this offense. So I think it's still a work in progress. It's going to be one for a little bit. The thing for me today, though, like our guard play is just so bad. Like Anthony Bradford again today takes a UR penalty, then takes a false start. They put Christian Haynes in, which was the second touchdown drive. And I just don't know how much longer they're going to wait on this Christian Haynes thing. Like, if he's close to or just slightly below where Anthony Bradford is currently at his state, I would start playing that guy more and start a rotation more and get him in there and let him take this job, because Bradford is such a liability in the pass game. Like, he's just, yes, he's a mauler and he can run block, but even today, the run blocking wasn't there from him. And Lincoln Tomlinson's a 1-year stopgap. Like, I got a feeling, and I will keep reiterating this point. I think Lamea and Haynes before the end of the year will be your 2 starting guards. I just think there's going to become a point where they're just going to start working those 2 more and more into the offense and going forward. But the thing that I found so interesting today, I don't know if you noticed this, Ryan, but Olu was a scratch.
Yeah.
That's pretty indicative to me that game 2 of the year, you're a scratch. Now, I get he doesn't have exactly a lot of, versatility as a positional player on the O-line, but he's the guy that I don't think you'd scratch necessarily, but we were really high on Jalen Sundell, and he gives you that versatility, and he fits more, I think, of what they want to do. And Ryan Grubb's system, the more you watch the run game, and Scott Huff, I should say as well, they want mobile, athletic guards and linemen.
Right.
And you don't really have that with Tomlinson and Bradford. Like, you look at if Abe Lucas when he comes back, you're going to have 2 very athletic tackles. We've already seen what Cross and him are like as athletic tackles. You're going to have a very athletic center. If Christian Haynes takes over at right guard, you've got an athletic guard. Same with Lamea on the other side. They're slowly trying to build a big, strong, athletic offensive line so they can do certain things. But yeah, no, today, the run game, the fact that Charbonnet went 14 carries for 38 yards is not a great sign. And I don't think Kenneth Walker is going to be back next week. I think they're going to give him another week. Obliques are a tricky thing, and you don't want them to turn into a potential sports hernia. So, I think there's a chance that we'll see Zach Charbonnet again, but maybe next week we'll see more Kenny Mack involved in the offense.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing I took away from it is Zach's not a number 1 guy. We know that. But the also just, again, like back-to-back weeks, what I saw from Grubb is adapting to the situation. I think, like we talked about, they're going to come out, try to establish that run. And the nice thing about Grubb, they didn't even know Zach's not putting up numbers. They're not getting, much push from the line. Like, he didn't go away from it. It wasn't like empty backfield, here we go, second half. They still tried to stick with it. But the other thing I will say is that, given some credit to that O-line, is that you talk about Ryan Grubb trying to establish your 1-2 punch at wide receiver, right? And then you look at what, today, JSN career year, DK, another plus 50-yard TD, right? Ranks him up there with Seahawk all-timers. And what was it? So you had they combined for 246 yards, right? So you look at that. So you got to like a little bit of the pass pro, and then obviously Geno doing his thing, getting out of situations. It shows Ryan is able to adapt to situations. I don't have Ken Walker today. Like, that was a big blow, and I think I think you probably didn't know exactly what you got in Zach yet, and then that may be why he was maybe playing a lot and Kenny Mack was, and then they're like, let's just keep feeding this guy the rock and he's going to eventually break one. I just think, you're going to, it's a long season. Zach's going to develop, but he is who he is. And I don't think they didn't draft him to be a number 1. That was never the plan. He was that, like you said, complimentary. Here's a little 1-2 punch with Kenneth being your number 1 dude and Zach coming, he can be that bruiser, change of pace kind of guy. Right. And so, when he's getting the majority now of the carries, it's it can be an issue. But I mean, I love just the feeding of, here's my 2 guys, DK, JSN, and people will rag on DK, maybe a drop or 2 and stuff like that, like, to be that upper echelon guy. But again, like, and I've seen it last season, I've seen it season prior, like, he steps up, he makes big plays, right? You talk about the overtime, he had a big like, he just seems to just, when it really counts, he's there, and that's why I love the guy. So I'm stoked what I saw out of that. The pass pro a little better, but yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely here's what I will say, and I'll let you get in, but I think it's going to depend. Like when you mentioned Lamea, I think it's going to depend on the record. Like if they keep winning football games, I think they'll just say, let's let maybe like I agree, Lake and Tomlinson, 1 year stopgap for sure. But then as Bradford kind of continues on, I think, because like we know he's a mauler. Can he get a little better in the pass pro? Maybe not. But I mean, if they're stringing 2-0, they're going back home to Lumen. No Tua. Like there's a chance we could be 3-0. So you just start making changes like that, or do you say, well, we're winning, let's try to maybe let these, like you mentioned, Connor Williams just getting his feet wet. So it's one of those things, maybe we got to sit back and say, hey, let's let Scott Huff do his thing and believe in Scott, and maybe can he turn that interior around a little, right? But I mean, I agree, Lake and Thompson for sure. Like I don't see him on this roster next season. But with all that being said, you're 2-0, you put up some nice yards with your wideouts, so.
Yeah, no, I think it does depend on the record a little bit, but part of me also goes like, how much longer are we going to be okay with an offense that in each game, one side or the other isn't really working? Like, you think of our last game, our running game really got us going against the Broncos, and then our pass game started to pick up because nothing was working in the first half. This game, the opposite's true. Our run game was non-existent. Geno had to do everything with his arm. And that kind of leads me into my second point in this game. Watching Ryan Grubb and Geno cook a passing offense together, like you alluded to there, like that was unreal. It was a thing of beauty. If you look at, and I highly suggest our listeners go look at Next Gen Stats, Geno's pass chart. I'll post it up on my Twitter feed. But just the dots that you see all over this field, it's like something you've never seen under Shane Waldron, or even when Russ was here with Bevel or any of Schottenheimer or any of those guys. Like they attacked every level of the field, and there is like a strong contingency of in the middle of the field. Now you can see kind of what happens when an offense with its passing game truly starts to attack and defense at multiple levels. Other things open up. Like DK's long bomb today. How often have we ever seen prior to this year DK lined up in the slot with someone else outside him, and DK just runs a go?
Right.
Like they drop the coverage completely, but DK is usually that guy on the outside that runs the go, and it's somebody else.
Exactly.
Like them running him on drags and getting him open in all these different ways and moving him around and moving Jackson around. Like I think I saw something. It's the first time for the Seahawks they've had two receivers over 100 yards in the game, over plus 10 catches.
Right. Well, and that goes back to the guys that we have in this lineup, like Tyler Cook last week. So it's
they
like
only had 2 targets, 2 catches for 15
non-existent,
yards.
right? But then here's JSN and DK and Ryan Grubb, like, and that's why we're so high on Grubb. And we're just getting started, right? And I think when we talked about it in the offseason, we said, hey, listen, first of all, early on, we were like, well, we're not going to throw out a win prediction because we're going to kind of see. Our biggest thing is, how is this team buying in? We use that word a lot. And how are they trending in November, December? And I think as the offseason went on, we're like, like the draft, like what John did in free agency, they're going after guys like Connor Williams. These guys want to compete. And then the way things were looking in camp, preseason, all these positives. Got a lot of guys that we talked to on our show and just around, the Seahawks and all this, double digit predictions. So now these expectations, now we're coming in here and we're 2-0, but I still think I'm going to just, it's just so many things, like everything's brand new. How is Grubb? And it's tough when like I said, when you don't have your starting back, and then you got to say, oh man, like this was going to be part of my game plan. And now Zach's gonna be my number one guy. It makes things difficult. But the nice thing about it just felt like one thing it did feel like today is when something wasn't struggling on the offense, the defense was picking it up, and then vice versa. Like, if obviously, we can jump into the defense too with the run game, or the run defense. Obviously there was some big runs. New England was grounding and pounding there for a while. That was where they were having their most success. And they put up a lot of yards on the ground. definitely tackling wasn't like last week, wasn't crisp. There was a few, things happening but guys stepping up. Like there still was constant pressure. Like balled. Leonard Williams to me is as advertised. Just feel like this D line is just going to be a wrecking crew come late in the season. Like I really think like the Byron Murphys and everybody is I just feel like, and Wasu's not even here. And we're still not even worried about it right now. Like, are we worried? Like, obviously, having him back in the lineup will be awesome. But it's like last year when he went out, it's like, man, shoot, like who now? Maffe's on his own, like, and then you saw a drop off from him, right? But now, Leonard and Byron in the middle, and then the Derek Hall on the outside, and it just feels like Mafe is just hitting it hard, and we were getting pressure on Brissett, and they were making key stops when we needed to. Like what was I don't have it right in front of me, but I mean a lot of 3 and outs, just big time stops when we needed it. And then talk about Julian Love, man. Talk about Julian Love as a leader on this defense. Like how quickly are you surprised how quickly like you can be like, well, they gave him this extension. He's the guy now. Jamal Adams and Quandre are out, so he should just slide in and be the guy. It's one thing to say that on paper, but then to show up like he's been doing, signing the extension, signing big money, and then all of a sudden, like I'm emerging as this leader and making plays all over the field, man. Like I am just super impressed what I've seen from Love.
Yeah, no, and this is kind of what they got when they signed him from New York, right? That was the whole thing when they signed him out of New York, was this is kind of the player they expected. But yeah, no, man, he's really taken to his leadership role in that defense and has really started to develop into a true, leader and top caliber safety in this league. But just to point out what you were saying about the defense, like, yeah, the run defense needs some work. They gave up, I believe it was 100 and what do I have here? Rushing, they gave up
185 or something.
Yeah, 185, 5 yards per rush, not great. But then you look at the passing chart for Jacoby Brissett. He was 15 to 27 for $150 and a touchdown. 8 of those catches and over 3/4 of those yards went to Hunter Henry. You take Hunter Henry out of this game, and it's a whole different story. So, yeah.
Well,
so,
and when they slowed Hunter down a bit, that's when Julian slid over there.
Exactly, and that kind of worked its way that way. So, we'll just get into some questions now, though, man, and some comments from some of the listeners out there. So, Metal Dragon says, Zach is a third down back, in my opinion. He wasn't very good last year either. They need to see what K-Mac can do and think about drafting another running back if Walker is going to be out a lot. I think last year, I think we just got to figure out what Charbonnet's role is going to be. I agree. I think he should be the third down, and I do think they need to give Kenny Mack some touches and see what he's got.
Yeah.
I don't know if drafting a running back is necessarily the right call, but we'll have to see if that's something they decide to do next year and look at in the later rounds. Maybe is getting another running back.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what they did with Kenny Mack, got him in the 7th round. So I think if you had something like that, where some guy, like I don't think you give up like something like a 2nd rounder for another back. I think you did it with Kenny, you did it with Zach, and I agree, man. Zach comes in, and to me, that's what Zach is. He's that change of pace bruiser, third down guy, short yardage, whatever. But in a pass pro guy, he can check off all those boxes. But I think you're gonna have to wait and see. Like I said, we're 2 games in, we're 2-0. You were down, and look, I get it. Ken Walker, like, yeah, he's been on the shelf, and now with this oblique, they're not going to rush it at all. So, he's not going to be playing in the against the Finns, and then we'll see even the week after that. So you might not even see him till week 5, maybe. And so that's a concern, right? But we all know, man. I mean, that's the position. That's the running back position. You go around the league, you start naming off guys that haven't been on the shelf. It's one of those things, and that's why in this day and age of paying players, you just don't pay your back. So the bigger thing for me is when it comes down to payday time for Ken, what are the Seahawks going to do? Do they do something like, and it's gonna be more like, what's the market like for Ken Walker? But you don't pay it. I don't see it, So, but again, that's going to be more the debate. I think we're too early on to talk about drafting another a back or even bringing in another back. Like you and I are high on McIntosh, and that's why I thought he should have been playing more. But again, young guy, he looks great in the preseason, but they know we trust in what these guys are evaluating during the week, and they might want to just integrate him in slower. So I just think your back room's still good. Look, Zach this guy can play football. I think it's just we're being too microscopic as well on one game. Like you can't judge guys on like, okay, I got to start. We all know, like we just talked about for the last whatever, he's not your number one back. So when it has to be your number one back, let's not expect him to be running for over 100. Like it's not going to do it. The thing that I like is that they stuck with the run. They kept the Pats honest in that regard. And look, Geno threw for 327. So maybe some of that opened up the passing game and, had targets for other guys. So I just think we're just too quick to start looking at that.
Yeah, I tend to agree a little bit. I think, we're going to have to see how this offense goes.
Right.
The thing for me, though, is I'm just like looking around right now on some of the stuff that's getting posted, and I'm looking at like the next gen stats. The route trees for JSN and for DK Metcalf in comparison to last year, it actually is like just astonishing how little they were used.
Well, JSN,
just
like,
for our
what
listeners,
was
go to my
JSN
Twitter
doing
page.
last year?
I put them up. There's one here for DK. It would have been week 15 of last year. He went 6 for 5 for 78 yards. And literally, he's got 4 routes he ran from the left side. He ran a post, a slant, and then like a stutter fade. And on the right side, he ran an out and a go. That was it. You look at this one, and he literally covers like the entire field. And it's like under routes, drag route, deep out, wheels, posts, streaks, whatever. Like it's all over the place. It looks like some kid that's in like the 3rd grade is just doodled all over the page. But those are the things we haven't seen as a fan base. We haven't seen DK. Like, we talked about it this offseason. DK Metcalf, you cannot wait till the second quarter of a game to get him involved. No. What did they do today? 14 targets, 10 catches for $130. Like, you actually got the dude involved in the offense. And what did you see from DK? What haven't we seen the first 2 weeks under DK? We haven't seen the emotional outbursts yet. They may or may not come. We've seen a guy that's been dialed in and just focused and driven. And that's what I think people don't understand is how much of his frustration, I think, last year boiled out to, well, it's the 3rd quarter and I still haven't seen a ball.
Well, I brought that up when we had Brandon Kane on the show. I said that exact same thing. I said, look, a lot of this, come on, man. It's no secret that I'm your number one receiver. And you haven't got me involved in this offense. And at the same time, I had the San Francisco 49ers DBs poking at me, talking all this crap. And you expect me, and some Seahawks fans might be like, yeah, I do expect you to not lose your temper. But you know what? It's a competitive freaking game. And when the frustration boils over because A, you're number one guy, and B, it's like, get me involved because I can help this team win. And that's to me that's not a me first mentality. That's just get me involved in this offense so I can help this team win football games. And when you go, like you said, 3 quarters, and look, I think people have to realize we're not talking 3 quarters of just one game. There was stretches, 5, 6 games in a row where that happened, and that's stacking, mentally stacking. You take anyone, and that's why this whole thing, when we talked to Brandon and he's in tune with us as far as that's concerned, it was like, stop, and like, you know what, if DK does have an emotional outburst week 6, week 7, I don't care. Like, he's a competitor. You're getting this guy in early, and I love the fact that you're bringing up the routes, because I think you mentioned on a show maybe a month or so ago that say, hey, look, if you're at the stadium, bring your binoculars, because you might not know where DK's lined up every single time, because he's going to be moving around. And look, 2-0 on the season. This offense is young, like as far as the scheme's concerned. So to me, we're just gonna see more of that. JSN, you bring up JSN, career year or a career game, right? What was Shane Haddon doing last year? I mean, the Bears are playing right now, like
Well, look at the
bubble
Bears, man. Like,
screens, and it was like, remember the first 7. I get he was a rookie, but it was like you knew what you had here, and you just like, well, you're wasting this guy, and that's why it's just so refreshing to move on from all that stuff and say we have a guy now. And I think you and I said it. Listen, if it didn't work out with Grubb, at least you swung for the fences and said, we're doing something different here. We're not bringing in some old OC off some old tree. And, hopefully this works out because their head coach won. And now, we're not doing that. He went out and got a guy from college football that said, I like what he does. So football's football. Let's transfer this over to the NFL. And, so far, my biggest takeaway from Grubb, really, my biggest takeaway is just, getting those guys involved early and often, but also just the way he's been able to adapt and say, okay, this isn't working. Let's, switch things up a little bit. Let's get this rolling, right? And to me, that shows him as a dynamic OC, and just being able to adjust, in games, right?
no, and that's the whole thing. Even defensively, like this, just for a point with Mike McDonald, the defense started. I think the Patriots went 4 for 4 on third downs to start the game. They went 12 for 2 for the rest of the game.
Right.
Like, we're talking about adjustments. Like, that's something we haven't seen as an offense, is true adjustments of, hey, like, this isn't working. What we came in with our game plan, they're doing this. How do we combat it and deal with it? The old Seahawks have been like, no, we're going to stick with it. Like, we're going to just buckle down the hatches and it'll eventually work its way out. That hasn't happened with this group. This group has changed so much. Like, you watch a Seahawks game from the beginning to the end now, you may not recognize the team from the first half to the second half because of the adjustments they're able to make. And that's something that I find really impressive and refreshing with this new coaching staff is, like you said, the ability to adapt. Like, Ryan Grubb, I haven't seen a point yet, and it may come. There may be a game. It may be versus the Niners. It may be versus somebody where he does struggle in that sense. And we do see someone got the better of Ryan Grubb this night.
Right.
But you don't see him just kind of throw in the cards and be like, shucks. Like, the Broncos came out in the first half last week and they just shut down my passing game. We abandoned a lot of our stuff. Like, no, okay, cool. You're going to do that. We're going to run the ball down your throat. This week, you're going to shut down my run game? Okay, cool. Geno, throw 44 times for 300 plus yards and a touchdown, and I trust you to do it. Like, and here's the one thing I'm going to say about Geno too, just to add to that statement I made earlier about him being like a top 10, top 12 quarterback. And even right now, I'd say for the first 2 weeks, I'd say Geno, like, no one's talking about Geno. I say Geno's playing like a top 5 quarterback right now in the NFL. People may think, whoa, like, that's a huge thing. It's not. I haven't seen Geno, at least in this game, I didn't see it really. I didn't see him throw a ball where I went, like, you threw that into like double coverage, or like that was a really bad place for that ball. Like, he's throwing extremely accurate passes into the right windows, into, holes in the coverage. Man, if Geno keeps playing like this, I don't see what's going to stop Seattle from extending him or DK in the offseason, truly. If Geno and DK can keep up what they're doing.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think it's inevitable that Geno for sure will get some type of contract extension. I just think it's just gonna happen. I don't even think. I mean, he's just playing good, even from camp, man. Like, just the rave reviews from the guys, how he's kind of just stepped up to the next level, right? And just laser focused, right? And then you look how he's played in these first 2 games with not a lot of protection from the interior. Just take away the numbers, right? Take away the numbers today, and just how he just kind of emerged as that leader and saying, I'm going to win this football game. I'm going to put a drive together in the fourth, and then I'm going to put a drive together in overtime. And then you go back to even the Broncos game. As far as a leader is concerned, that first half that we talked about was so dismal that it was like he could have easily freaked out, lost it. Everything was going wrong, and it was like, nope. And that's testament to Geno. Obviously, this coaching staff as well, the way they've got these guys just prepared. They're professional. even coming off after this win, it was just like it was a professional win. Let's get out of here. But I like I said, Geno Smith, I agree. He's looking good, and I think we're fans of DK, and I think people don't realize how important he is to this team and this offense. To have a guy like that with his abilities, again, numbers aside, just you look what he does when it counts. You look what he does when you need him to step up and a big play needs to be made. Now, does he need to, improve on some stuff? Sure. I mean, name a guy that doesn't, but I think he is worthy of getting that big contract and being a Seahawk. I would hate to see him leave. And then look, Tyler's going to be gone. Okay, so that's the other thing you have to look at. So then how's that receiver room going to look all of a sudden, right? JSN, and then okay, now he has to be your number one guy. And I'm not saying he's not capable, but is he that guy? And then where do you go from there? Then you got to start over. Like, what are you doing? Where's your number two? Do we draft a guy? Do we go get a guy in free agent? I mean, if you go get a guy in free agency, well, how much are you paying him? Unless you're just getting a middle of the row guy. So really your strategy would be, well, let's just hit it on the draft. Well, that's easier said than done. And especially a guy that's that dynamic. You pay that guy. You extend both these guys, I think. And then we can talk about, I think, and you and I were talking about it. I think this whole quarterback of the future thing, you can put that on ice a little bit and kind of hang out and wait on that. I don't think we're worried about that right now.
You got to think, Geno, I think it was last year, had 5 game-winning drives in our season.
Right.
This game, he had the game-tying drive and the game-winning drive.
Yeah.
Overall, just to put like a kind of a cap on my overall views of this game, these are games our Seahawks have lost historically in the past. Games where you have to have grit, games where you have to be tough, and at least in the last 5 years, I'll say that. It's refreshing to sit in those games now, and I watch them, and I'm like, yeah, they're not having the greatest day, but you know what? There's a good chance we might be able to pull this one out anyways. We haven't been able to say that for the last couple of years, where it's been, a situation where, okay, crap, the Seahawks offense isn't working. Just everyone get ready for next week. So it'll be interesting going into next week versus Miami. Obviously now, with the whole Tua Tagovailoa situation, and we're probably going to see Skylar Thompson, I would assume, is going to be the quarterback. I got a feeling Miami's going to sign Ryan Tannehill to be their quarterback going forward for the rest of the year, because Tannehill made the comment he wants to play for a contender. Miami with a quarterback potentially is a playoff team. So it'll be interesting. But like, I just looked at our next 5 games. So our next 5 games going up, and I'm just going to kind of touch on this, but
I want to touch on this just before you get into the next game. So I want to talk about the next games. Do just what your point on the offense and the games we lose. Like, I think when you look at it too, like the score was 23-20. You and I threw some predictions out like we do in our pre-games. I think I had them scoring 21 points, and you were in the 20s, right? And I think that's, first of all, you're on the road. We look at all that. We know this isn't a fine-tuned offense yet, and that's the thing. And I think later in the year, as we go on, there might be some higher prediction scores, and once this all kind of puts together, especially that O-line can get a little better, and then all of a sudden this, but also the defense keeping us in games where, hey, we got out on the road with a win with 23, right? Which is good, but like, in the past, man, like, obviously our run defense was a bit shoddy here, but we're growing. But we made stops when it counted, right? Like there was that one drive where it was just kind of pounded down your throat and it was a little deflating. But other than that, like, yeah, they broke some tackles and they went for some runs, but they were stopping them, right? And they were settling for field goals, and it enabled the offense to, like, okay, we don't have to just chuck it up and try to play this shootout, because our defense is going to be there. And so I think you look at that combination and just touching on that and the offense, that because we're throwing, like I threw out 21, like we know they're not fine tuned, even though we're excited about Grubb and all this other kind of stuff and this dynamic offense. So, but coming out with a win. So what does that say? It says that this team is going to be in good shape. We're not going to win every game, and every game in the NFL is going to be hard. Like I don't want people to think, hey, we're going next week at home with no Tua. That's a cakewalk. Miami's got a lot of good players, and I don't know much about their backup, but we're going to talk to Dan Vians coming up we're going to have a preview show this week, and we'll get into it more. But, let's keep the foot on the gas, because again, we're not just dominant, right? So, but yeah, like jumping ahead here, man, you're the next 5, man. Like, you got the Finns coming in, right? And then
we got the Finns, we got the Lions, then we
right,
got
Monday
the
night.
Giants, then we got the Niners on Thursday night at home, and then we got the Falcons.
Right.
You look at the Seahawks right there. The game, I think personally, and people may not feel the same way about this, I feel the biggest test in that game might be Detroit in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In Detroit.
Well,
because we're going into Detroit.
Yeah.
And you look at the Niners right now, they're struggling. They've clearly got some form of a Super Bowl hangover going on.
Well, CMC-less as well. Let's not forget
he's
about
on
that.
IR, but they just look off. And George Kittle, I think, got carted off the field today, so you don't know what George Kittle's situation is. But, like, I just look at that team at whole, and I think I think a lot of things are finally starting to catch up with them. It's a lot. You think about that team.
Well,
like,
do you believe in Brock, right? I mean, like I said, it's early, but not a very good preseason. I'm still not a believer, and I listen, I'll give credit when credit's due. Like there's games where he's put balls on point and he makes plays with the legs. And I'm not sitting here saying, hey, Brock Purdy's a scrub and he should be like, he's a good player, but I'm not this believer. And I still think he's one of your weaker links. And then we've seen it last year when a guy or two goes out, they struggle. What happened today with Seattle? I know we're jumping ahead and looking at, let's see, no Ken Walker. Fant, your backup tackle's gone. You're down to your third guy, figuring out a way to win football games still.
Yep.
So when I look at that and compare just those two QBs like that. So yeah, like you said, man, San Francisco, man, it's you don't know. And yeah, Super Bowl hangover is real, man. It can be a real thing.
So, I'm going to throw this one up here right now because we are talking a little bit about next week. Nate Kushner asks, do you see Seattle winning next week to start 3-0? I think what Mike McDaniel is going to do down there in Miami, he's going to make things really easy for Skylar Thompson. He's going to say, hey, let's get the ball in Jalen Waddle, Tyreek's hands, and maybe not be like Tua and push it down the field. I could see them doing more kind of what the Rams do in the over-under routes and running the ball. I think they're going to get Devon Achane involved really quickly. They're going to get Raheem Mostert involved a lot,
right?
And try and ease him in because it's going to be loud. Like now you've got a Seattle team coming back that's 2-0.
Yeah,
I think it's going to get louder in that facility in Seattle at Lumen Field. It's going to be a really interesting week through. I think Seattle will win. And Nate, to answer your question, I will give my true prediction on that when we talk with Dan Vians on our show this week. But yeah, in regards to like today, and Ryan, I know we're probably going to wrap this up here shortly, but the Seattle's making progress and I'm not seeing a lot of regression.
Right.
The O-line hasn't regressed. They just haven't gotten any better yet. So it's a good thing to see. And you listen to Mike McDonald talk and it's all about, hey, yeah, we did this, we won, but we still got to do this, and this. Like there's still constant improvement coming. So it's just exciting, man, to see this team's not as bad as what people thought they were going to be with a new coach, and to see that our new direction might have been the right choice. Like there were Baltimore fans, dude, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, losing their minds that they let Mike McDonald out of the building.
Oh, I know. They wanted that.
They're like, they should have fired Harbaugh and kept McDonald. Like we should never have let him go. Man, it's an interesting thing. We might have got a real steal.
Well, we both think we did, but I also think, I'm not sure, when you talk about national media and be like, well, Pete Carroll's gone. The rookie head coach. A lot of these, national guys, they don't know our roster and how much talent we have on the squad. And we needed a freaking change, as much as we love Pete and we can say that till we're blue in the face. Yeah, he was great here in Seattle. He's a legend, right? But the change was needed. And we knew it. You and I talked about maybe 4 or 5 guys that really needed that change, on that roster. Reek and Draymond, guys like that, like getting excited because you look and just like we have talent on this squad. And then we were like, this team won 9 games back-to-back years with bad coaching. Like, I mean, to win 9 games and make the playoffs one of those years, almost make the playoffs the other year with a last place run defense and just a mess really of a defense. And that to me is more like, I'm not going to give any credit to Pete or anything like that, but that just shows how much talent you have on this football team. And then when you get a guy like this, I guess he's a rookie, but you can tell, like you brought up the point of Mike McDonald standing up at the podium saying, look, we're pumped up. We're 2-0. We're fired up. But listen, work to be done here. He's not settling. He's not like, hey, like, let's go pop the champagne bottles because we're 2-0 and I'm a rookie head coach. I don't have any. Mike, if you go talk to Mike, and I never have, hopefully maybe we will one time, but I bet if you said, Mike, what's your expectations? He's got the highest expectations out of anybody. He's just that guy. He's attention to detail guy. You can tell everything about him, and from what the players say, and no wonder the players are buying into this guy, and just seeing what this guy's all about. He wants to compete, and then you look at all that, and you add all that up and say this team, it could be a double-digit win team. Playoff caliber team, how far they can go in the playoffs, that's yet to be determined because we're so early and things like we can't look. The thing people got to remember, we can't just look at these 2 games and say, listen, they're poor here and they're poor here. And so because of that, they're not a playoff caliber team. This is the kind of team, and we've said this, we've had people on the show. What are they looking like in November? So listen, if we're 5-0, again, what are we looking like in November, December, when we're approaching the playoffs? If we start like, wow, now this team's firing on cylinders. Scott Huff's got this O-line dialed in, pretty decent. Now that's when you're like, you get excited about it, right? So I just kind of look at all those things. But you're right, and we did have a Ravens guy on, and I think he did say that same thing. Like they were pissed because as much success as John Harbaugh has been, that that can get old, and like here's this young guy. Obviously, they know what they had defensively last year, and say, hey, this guy is head coach material. And you and I have commented that this guy already looks like a veteran head coach. He does not seem like this rookie head coach out there. So I agree, man. I think he might got a steal. And it was so far just the way everything, and I'm not even talking about the 2-0. The way everything just looks. It looks like a fantastic hire and a guy for the next X amount of years. We got our guy in this division now that can go toe to toe with those other guys.
No, 100%, man. And I think it's going to be really interesting. But I think that's where we should probably cap tonight for tonight's show. We've got Dan Viens coming on to preview the Miami Dolphins game. So Dan from Seahawks Forever will be joining us earlier this week, or coming up this week, I should say. And then we've got another kind of small show that's going to get dropped every week, guys, going forward, where I'm going to hop on and do an all 22 breakdown of some of the key points for the Hawks for throughout the season. Break down the all 22 film with you guys, show some things that they're doing well, some things they may be struggling with and need to clean up before every matchup with everyone else. So yeah, those are some things coming up.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Look out for that stuff. And like Bryce has said, if get to be a part of the family here, right? Get down here, subscribe to the channel, and let's just grow this thing because we're excited. This is gonna be a great season, and we just want to keep bringing you guys this content. And this is gonna be a fun ride, whether they lose, win. It's just gonna be it's just gonna be a fun season. We knew that coming in here. And we're 2-0, guys. 2-0 here in the brand new season. First in the NFC West, man. You just can't ask for anything better than that right now. 2-0, Mike McDonald. We're coming home to Lumen, and we're gonna wrap this up. I just want to say one thing. The 12s are gonna be back next week. Like it is gonna be loud as hell. It was loud last week. I think it might be louder coming in this week. So, just get ready for that. If you get a chance to get down to the stadium, I mean, it's talk about going to be a good experience. And, hopefully there's not too many of those ugly teal, whatever color jerseys are in the stands, man. Those Dolphin fans can stay home. So, hey, man, that's it. Hawks 23-20 in OT, beating the Pats, moving to 2-0. That's it for us tonight. Guys, check it out. Coming up in a couple days to preview Dan Vian's Hawks Zone Rundown. That's it for us tonight. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.